to order the March 24th, 2015 meeting of the Marion County School Board. For the courtesy of those listening to the meeting, I'm requesting everyone in the audience, please turn off their electronic devices or put them on vibrate. Later in the meeting, up to 30 minutes will be provided for individuals to address the board on matters concerning the operation of the Marion County school system or the school board only. Presentations to the board are limited to 5 minutes and are televised. If you wish to address the board regarding a regular agenda item on matters which the board customarily takes action, you must first complete a peach form located on the front table. If you wish to address the board regarding a public hearing or a student discipline matter, please complete a lime green form. These forms must be fully completed and received by the board secretary no later than 5:40 p.m. The procedures applicable for each are on a separate sheet. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bobby James, District 3.
Here.
Mrs. Kelly King, District 5. Here. Mrs. Nancy Stacy, District 1. Here. Mrs. Carol Ely, District 2.
Present.
Angie Boynton, District 4.
Here.
Mr. Stephen Lake, Board Attorney.
Here.
George Simon, Superintendent.
Here.
Ms. Bobby Knighton, Secondary Math Program Specialist, please introduce the students who will lead us in the pledge and provide the inspiration this evening.
Good afternoon. Today we will be recognizing Math Count students and coaches. We begin with the inspiration given by Mrs. Pamela Ernest from Howard Middle School.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When I was a young mom at Madison Street with Nancy Stacy, and I see Terry Adams, Mrs. Evans read us a poem one night. She was a kindergarten teacher, and when I heard this poem, I have used this poem for all of my life as a mom and now as a teacher at Howard Middle School. Let me read it. It's called Unity Poem. Thank you, sir. Okay. I dreamed I stood in a studio and watched two sculptors there. The clay they used was a young child's mind, and they fashioned it with care. One was a teacher. The tools they used were books, music, and art. The other, a parent, worked with a guiding hand and a gentle, loving heart. Day after day, the teacher toiled with touch that was deft and sure, while the parents labored by their side and polished and smoothed it o'er. This is my favorite part. And when at last their task was done, they were proud of what they had wrought. For the things they had molded into the child could neither be sold nor bought. And each agreed they would have failed if each had worked alone. For behind the parent stood the school, and behind the teacher, the home. Thank you very much.
Please stand as John Franco Cortez leads us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On February 8th of this year, dozens of middle school students from around the county converged at Maplewood Elementary to participate in the nationwide competition, Math Counts. The Florida Engineering Society, Forest Chapter, sponsors Math Counts, and Tillman and Associates Engineering do an outstanding job of coordinating and running this all-day event. The object? To solve math equations and word problems most accurately in the shortest time. Math Counts consists of 5 rounds: spirit round, target round, team round, cipher match, and countdown round. Teams from Bellevue Middle, Blessed Trinity School, Fort King Middle, Fort McCoy Middle, Howard Middle, Horizon Academy at Marion Oaks, Lake Weir Middle, North Marion Middle, and Osceola Middle participated in this year's event. The top 2 teams attended the state competition held last week in Orlando. It's now time to meet these amazing students, and they are amazing, and their coaches. The second place team from Marion County is from Osceola Middle School. Team members are Max Blessing, Graham Cope, Anderson Salazar is ill and not able to attend tonight, and Jeremy Wellhoner. This team is coached by Mrs. Julie Ennis. Our first place team from Howard Middle School consists of John Franco Cortez, Anirudh Goganini, Daniel Liu, unable to attend tonight are Mansi Patel and Kranti Rumala. This team is coached by Mrs. Pamela Ernest. Let's give these students and coaches. Thank you. Sure.
I want to thank these teachers because I don't think the community fully understands, or maybe they do, how much the teachers do on their own, that there's just not really any reward for it except maybe $1.98. And it just amazes me because, you know, to take children and guide them to where they live in a world of excellence, in a world today that just everybody wants, it's fine to be average. And our excellent students still stand out, and I applaud the teachers. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you. I just want to know where the girls were. Were they in the competition?
They were there. There were many girls there. They just weren't on the top
We
two.
need to get some girls.
Yes.
See this what's happening here.
I'm with you.
In a state competition, just to let you know, it's very interesting. We just, Mrs. Ennis and I just went, the top 10 students from the state of Florida, 9 were boys.
Wow.
And there's not a difference between boys and girls.
Congratulations. Congratulations. And thank all of you. Thank you, Ms. Ballas. Mr. Superintendent.
Board, with the exception of JD 15-63, under SD 47, which has been withdrawn from the agenda, I recommend approval of the agenda for the March 24th, 2015 school board meeting with the materials in the board packet. Those materials distributed to board members at the meeting, the audio recording and DVD included as part of the official record of the meeting.
May I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation, please?
So moved.
The motion has been properly moved by Mrs. Ely and seconded by Mr. James. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the February 19, 2015 administrative briefing and work session, February 24, 2015 school board meeting, the March 3, 2015 administrative briefing and work session. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Mrs. Ely and seconded by Mrs. King. Is there any discussion? I call a question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to adopt a proclamation recognizing the month of April as Autism Awareness Month? It's been properly moved by Mrs. King and seconded by Mr. James. Is there any discussion? I call a question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. Mr. Kevin Christian, Public Relations Officer and TV Media Productions Coordinator, along with Ms. Amy Pipperto, Exceptional Student Education Program Specialist for Autism, and Mr. and Mrs. Nye, parents of ASD Maplewood student, please come forward for the reading and presentation of the proclamation.
You can stand right here while I read this, okay? You could probably read this better than I could. This proclamation reads, whereas autism is a complex developmental disability typically appearing during the first 3 years of life and is estimated to occur in 1 out of every 50 children and is 5 times more prevalent in boys than girls but knows no racial, ethnic, or social boundaries. Whereas autism affects the normal development of the brain in the areas of reasoning, social interaction, and communication skills, and children and adults with autism typically have difficulties in verbal and nonverbal communication, social interaction, and leisure activities. Whereas autism has wide-ranging implications for the entire family of the diagnosed individual, and early diagnosis, research, training, education, and therapy are all vital to reducing the negative effects of autism. Whereas significant progress has been made in the last 30 years in the areas of research, medication, diagnosis, and therapies for autism, resulting in an improved quality of life for individuals living with autism and for their families. Whereas autism is a complex disability requiring research to find a cure and prevention, as well as increased recognition and understanding to ensure individuals with autism are accurately diagnosed and appropriately treated throughout their lives. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder yet most underfunded. And whereas it is in our interest as a school district and community to recognize achievements in this field and continue these efforts by promoting the awareness and fostering the understanding of autism, now therefore be it resolved that the Marion County School Board and Superintendent of Schools hereby proclaim the month of April as Autism Awareness Month in Marion County to increase awareness and compassion in our community. And of course, it's signed and dated by each of you this evening. So, Ms. Piperato, I'm going to present this to you, but I want you to come up and you can say whatever you'd like.
Well,
And we have guests as well, so if they want to
We do
speak.
have guests, so actually, this year, instead
Come on
of
over here.
someone from the Exceptional Student Education Department accepting this proclamation, we thought it would be more fitting to actually have our parents accept the proclamation.
So on behalf of the board, I'll present this to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wanna
We just
thank-
want, I'd like to thank the school board, Marion County, excuse me, Chase, and all the teachers that have to teach every day children that have our ESU students or exceptional students, we like to say. And thank you for my son Chase. So thank you again to Marion County, the school board, all of you. We appreciate this.
We'd like to present these pins to you for autism awareness on behalf of the Exceptional Student Education Department, our teachers, and the parents of our students with autism, as well as our students like Chase.
Thank you, Chase.
Good job, Chase. Thank you.
Good job, Chase.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christian and Ms. Pipperto. Board, may I have a motion to adopt a proclamation recognizing April as School Library Month? May I have a motion in a second, please?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Ely and seconded by Mrs. King. Is there any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. Ms. Belinda Voss, Program Specialist for Library Media Services and the Arts, and the group of librarians who you have brought with you, please come forward for the reading and presentation of the proclamation.
I'd like to introduce my group of librarians. I have Sandy Lewis, who is currently at Bellevue Elementary School and Maplewood Elementary School. Terry Adams, who's the librarian at Liberty Middle School. And Terry Robinson, I just got nervous. Terry Robinson, who is the librarian at Bellevue Santos Elementary School and Maplewood Elementary School. I know that I can speak for all elementary librarians when I say we are excited for next year to have one school and be back to fully staffed. So we hope that the future we can build our library programs to even better than they have been in the past. We sent you a little infographic on your email. We're trying to go towards our vision, which is more technology and less paper. So if you would like to take a look at that, that is our vision for where our libraries can be if we continue to be fully staffed in the next few years. Proclamation. School Library Month, April 2015. Whereas library programs ensure that all students and staff are effective users of ideas and information, and whereas the school librarian's role is to provide the leadership and expertise necessary to ensure that the library program is an integral part of the instructional program of the school, and whereas the Board of Education has entrusted the library specialist in each school to teach the skills of locating, evaluating, and using information found in traditional resources and new technologies, to provide literature appreciation activities, and to guide and encourage content and recreational reading for every student. And whereas lifelong learning begins and is systematically developed through the library curriculum of the elementary and secondary schools, and whereas the library program contributes to the individual growth and development of all students while fostering both excellence and equity in education, and whereas the school librarians of Marion County have dedicated themselves to work for quality library programs for all students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Marion County Schools does hereby proclaim April 2015 as School Library Month in all of the public schools of Marion County, and calls upon school administrators, teachers, students, and citizens of Marion County to recognize and support this action and to participate throughout the month of April in the celebration of School Library Month. And it's signed by all of you, so I do appreciate that.
Yes, you know, we have proclamations and people come up and we do this every single board meeting. And what I would like to ask the librarians to do is, if you have if you girls have something that's really pressing that I need to know or board members need to know, would you please contact us? I would like to know how to make our libraries excellent. I am on the excellent mode. The taxpayers have given us money. They do not mean for us to do this halfway. And if there's something that the libraries need, we have the money. And I want you to tell me what you need. And I'll bring it to the board, and I know the other board members would do the same if you brought it to them. We will bring it forward. Tell us what you need. We do not have a crystal ball. I am not an educator. I need help. Please tell me what you need.
You might be sorry you told me that, but
Tell me.
I'll contact you. Well, I think we've moved to the right direction by having one librarian back at every school and an assistant back at every school. That's really critical so that the librarian can interact with the teachers and collaborate to teach the information skills that are so necessary.
And I appreciate that. And you really won't know exactly until you get completely pulled back together and you regroup with all the new things. You really are going to start thinking of things to make it even better. And please let us know what it is.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
We appreciate it.
Ms. Ely has a comment too.
I just wanted to applaud you all for not quitting on us. You know, we kept telling you it was going to get better, this referendum's going to pass, and I know how difficult and how challenging it was to take care of two schools, but thank you for hanging in there, and congratulations on getting your own school next year. I look forward to coming there and especially to see just the one librarian and one assistant, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that too, because I want to applaud my elementary librarians, because even in the face of adversity, they stood up and did the best that they could in both schools, and a lot of times that involved a lot of extra work and a lot of hard,
Right.
unpaid time on their part, but they did it for the kids. That's the important thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Board, may I have a motion to approve resolution number 1501, authorizing the lease purchase of school buses from Bank of America Public Capital Corp. not to exceed $5,285,479. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Second.
The motion has been made by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Ely. Is there any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Board. Individuals who have completed the appropriate form prior to 5:40 p.m. will now have the opportunity to address the Board. Before you begin your presentation, it is required that you state your name and address for the record. Additionally, please spell your last name. Matters dealing with student discipline, including expulsions, will be scheduled at the conclusion of the televised portion of this meeting. Parents wishing to address the Board regarding a discipline matter will have the opportunity to do so at that time. I will now ask the school board attorney to explain some additional points.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you plan to address the school board tonight, you need to be aware of the school board procedures. Mr. Christian is near one of the front tables, and the forms are also on those tables. Under the school board's procedures, AV presentations are permitted if provided at least 48 hours prior to the meeting to the school board's assistant. Audiovisual presentations are limited to a total of 5 minutes. Use of any student's name except by his or her parent or guardian, or identifying references to or identification of other students and their families is strictly prohibited. Based on time consideration, the school board, by majority vote, may rightfully limit the number of presentations on any one topic, shorten the presentation time, move public comment time to a different position on the agenda, or eliminate the public comment time altogether. Ms. Boyne?
Madam Secretary, do you have any speakers tonight?
Mr. Robert Wood.
Good afternoon, good evening, whichever. I am Robert Wood. Last spelling of my last name is W-O-O-D. My residence is 1728 Northeast 7th Street here in Ocala. And I'm here to discuss the idea of trying to stop a fencing action that is being taken place at Fort King Middle School. I have a petition that I would like to present you. Have your choice, you're more than welcome to. Also, I have photographs that are available of the existing fencing in the area of discussion. And I'd like to present it to the board if I may. To give a little credibility, I was born in Ocala in 1944. I came back here in 1997 after completing a career in law enforcement and also in photography. Moved back in over here at Northeast 7th Street, right behind Fort King Middle School. And we've had a good relationship with the school system, and I thank you all very much. However, we've come across a problem that the school officials have decided that they're going to take back something that has been open since 1958 to my knowledge. That's a easement area on the north side of the school near the FFA building, or structure as you want to call it. We have had access to our back of our properties since 1958, to my knowledge again. I find that the desire by the school system is to put a fence right up against our existing fences. That means that children would be able to come up. Y'all have already established a fence there to secure the property. No problem, no issues. Again, having been a law enforcement, I understand the issues. However, with the new provision, that means that more money is going to be spent for additional fencing. Gates are going to have to be ensued into letting people come ingress, egress out of this area. Folks, I have on this petition, everybody on Northeast 7th Street that lives adjoining this property with the school has signed this petition. They want to stop it before it gets further. Y'all spent a lot of money getting trees knocked down to put a fence up. And it's supposed to be a chain link fence. They say it's a privacy fence. I disagree with that thought. So I'm open to your discussion if you'd like.
I'm going to let our attorney handle that, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Appreciate your comments. I'll just step in because the legal department was asked to take a look at this issue. So I'll give a little summary of that, and then we'll go from there. The School Board Attorney's Office did review a recent request from the district's Facilities Department, which requested advice on proper procedures to provide appropriate notice to the homeowners who are abutting on the north boundary of the Fort King Middle School property, should the district elect to move forward with relocating the chain link fence from its current position to the actual boundary line, which is just south of the homeowner's property lines. And as Mr. Wood said, he's one of the abutting homeowners on Fort King's northern boundary line. My understanding from speaking with Deputy Superintendent Chester Gregory and Facilities Department Supervisor Robert Knight is that the district's immediate concern is and has been to make sure that the district's, or actually the land in question is cleaned up and is free from storage of any kind of hazardous materials, and including discarded trees, and also making sure that maintenance people and tree surgeons can get in there to trim those large trees that are to the north of the Fort King property. In my review of the Facilities Department request, I determined that the district appears to have full legal rights to relocate that fence if it decides to do so, subject to the rights of an existing City of Ocala utilities easement, and subject to providing the homeowners with adequate prior notice. And adequate notice could be provided by actually posting the property with appropriate notices by certified mail to each homeowner, through a legal advertising notice in local publications, or any combination of those methods. That's my legal summary. And I understand that Mr. Gregory might be available to address any further concerns of Mr. Wood at this point.
No problem at all. To kind of rebut you a little bit, if I may, having lived in this residence since its conception back in 1959 or 60, and I apologize, I can't be more explicit. My parents and I, we've maintained the exterior property area that we were in discussion many, many times. However, when I left home, my side of it got dropped off until I've retaken the residence back in 1997. Often I have gone out and mowed and cleaned up the area around behind my residence. In the discussion with the residents that adjoin this property, each resident has assured me they would be more than willing to assist the school board in maintaining the exterior properties. But there's always been an existing problem in between the city, the county, school board about who owned what. And I can attest that I have received several pine limbs through my screened-in enclosure that came from the trees over there, because there's no trees in my yard, and it's gone through my screen with no recourse from y'all. So I bring that to your attention only from the standpoint, we are more than happy to work with the school system. We want you to know that we appreciate what you do. So give us a little bit of latitude to give us access to the property in our backyard areas, because otherwise it's going to cost us considerably money to put a right-of-way area back to our back side of our property from off of 7th Street. And believe me, that's kind of hard to do. So I thank you very much for,
Ms. Stacy has a comment.
yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you coming to us. I don't know what this driving urge is for us to claim property that does not belong to there is no Marion County School Board owner. We are managers of this land. This land is owned by the taxpayers.
I agree.
And if taxpayers, come to us with a problem like this, we need to hear this. This little piece of land cannot make that much difference to us. And if it's not been perfectly cleaned up for the last 50 years, no one even knows it belongs to us. I don't understand if we don't have enough to do. If we don't have enough to do, then we certainly need to re-examine this staffing plan they're trying to get us to vote on tonight, because we have people with way too much to do if we're over there bugging you people with fencing.
I thank you for that very much, ma'am. Now, I
And
can
I think
tell,
we definitely need to stop this.
I can tell you quite honestly that it hasn't been cleaned up in quite some time. Can prove that by many of the homeowners that are not present, but be willing to come and testify to this fact without a problem.
Well, if we've got this much time, we need to re-examine the staffing plan.
I thank you very much for
Ms.
that.
Stacy, and Mr. Wood, I want to thank you for coming and bringing this to our
Sure.
attention. But I do know, I heard a little bit, and we talked a little bit about it earlier this afternoon, and Mr. Knight isn't available. Mr. Gregory is available. and
I've
so-
spoken to Mr. Gregory as well.
Okay. Well, some of the issues that you brought up, it can't be determined right at this very moment. And I would like for us to address it, and if you need any more information from Mr. Gregory, I'm sure he'll be more than happy to, meet with you after this.
Ma'am,
Okay, and Mr. Knight is here, okay?
and I will be glad to meet with any and all of them at that time.
Okay, Mr. Knight, he brought up the issue of the fencing around,
Yes.
that's gonna be taken behind Fort King Middle School?
Yes,
on
the
the north
northern
side,
boundary.
And there hasn't been maintenance on our behalf since when, do you know?
There's always constant maintenance. That's part of the problem. The school board owns the property that abuts the property owners to the north. That area has not been fenced off in the past because of a water easement that was given to the city in 1965. In addition, there is a power easement to the city of Ocala Electric, which runs from the west side to the east, probably 3 lots in and then turns south. The issue at hand is that the school system has to go back there from time to time to clear out trees that fall on people's property. You've heard him testify that he's had some tree branches fall on the property. The concern that's there is there are people that are parking their personal equipment and vehicles back there on school board property. There's a trailer that's usually parked there. There is a stack of used tires that is parked there and accumulated over time. In addition, there is somebody that owns either directional bore equipment or drilling equipment that's parked there. And according to some of the other neighbors, they've seen people come back and forth through there with canisters of either oil or fluid of some type, probably to power this machinery. Well, obviously it's difficult to clear brush and keep the area maintained if people have their personal equipment parked on school board grounds on that property. And so the attempt to clear is constant. It never goes away. It's by law, we have to maintain our property, whether it's accessible or not. That's part of the deal, is that the school board's liable for anything that happens on its property. So the trees are trimmed from time to time. It's become increasingly difficult, like I said, because of the equipment and other things that are stored back there on that property. That's, I think, the central issue, more so than anything else.
All right, Mr. Knight, go with Mr. James and then Ms. Stacy.
Question, Mr. Robert, if you stay there,
Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, you've been in that area how many years now?
I've been there myself again since 1997, but I was moved there actually in 1960, 59 or 60.
Okay, I wanted to try and get some idea of how long we've had this property there and how long it's been open.
I can verify, based on the information I have in my safe at home, that there's been open for this since 1958, to my knowledge.
Okay, have we ever posted that property out there saying no trespass? No, saying no dumping and all that? Have
To
you
my
ever seen-
knowledge, no. However, he may have a different point.
1958, I don't believe my parents had met, so I can't tell you whether or not we were posting anything back then, but the school was fenced at some time. It was not fenced when the school was built in 1959. I'm not sure exactly when that fence went up. Like I'd stated earlier, the fence was put up mostly because back at that time, the city of Ocala put in a water line through that northern end in 1965, and I'm sure it was to give them access to it. There's a number of pine and other trees that are on that property, like I said, being maintained. As far as anything being posted, I'm not aware of anybody posting anything. Quite honestly, my department did not assume control of environment and safety, which covers tree trimming, until last year. So I unfortunately can't help you out with anything in the past as far as notification.
Okay, my question that I have on this now, how long have you all been working on this project in terms of fencing this in?
We really haven't worked much on fencing it in. We've, the latest tree trimming and effort to take down dead or leaning trees which could threaten either our or somebody else's property is most recent within the last few weeks. That's it. It derived out of that operation that we realized that,
Okay.
no wonder we can't trim all the trees. There's some equipment and personal belongings that are not school systems.
Okay, just clarify where I'm trying to go. Now, we've had this property all this time, but in the last few weeks, we came up with the idea that we're gonna fence it.
Well, the thought is that obviously we can't police that area on a regular basis, and if it's going to stay out of sight, out of mind, so to speak, from the school standpoint, the thought is that perhaps it would be better to fence that area off so we don't have people trespassing and leaving equipment on the property. And that,
Okay.
again, it's a thought that derived out of trimming the trees. It's not a project, so to speak.
Okay. You've answered my question, and the thing that I'm concerned about most of all is the fact that there was not a problem until 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Well, it's been a problem. It's just that it hasn't
Been out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I don't know. We've gone back there many times to trim trees, and I know that one of the conflicts in the past, we were asked, do we own the property? And we did a deed check, and yes, we do. And the reason why the question was asked, do we own the property, is that whenever we have gone out in the past to trim trees, we're met with, your property's causing a problem for me as a homeowner. But if that's the case, then how come there's all these vehicles or equipment on school board property? And so I think in the past, it was a question of, well, we just did it because we thought we owned the property. We do own that property. And obviously, it would be up to the board to decide, do you continue to allow or not allow someone to access your property? I think that's what the issue really is.
Okay, but regardless of whether we put a fence there or not, we're still gonna have to trim those trees, right?
Yes, and
Okay.
that would take place at any campus we have. Got a dead
Okay.
tree, you take it down.
Okay.
I just think it's a little harsh because we have a tree trimming problem when no one has communicated in 60 years with these people that they shouldn't be parking there. I think that a sign, tow away zone or whatever, we need to put some signage. A sign is cheaper than a fence. I don't know why we go to the extremes we do to just try to prove that we are so powerful, we can just claim things without any communication with anyone, and granted, it belongs to the school board. But I don't know when we found out we owned it, but I guess within 5 minutes, we decided to fence it after we found out we owned it. I think we have enough to take care of. If the neighbors are willing to help keep up the property or whatever and make sure that nothing's on it, I don't see why we didn't communicate that to the people first. Why do we always go to speed 1,000 miles an hour instead of taking things gradually?
Well, just to clarify, again, there's no project to put a fence up. I'm not sure where you're getting that we went out to tell anybody anything. The concern simply was we went out there to do routine tree trimming, and there's a pile of equipment and other things that are not school board property. What do we do? So I sought the advice of Mr. Lake, hey, how do we notify people that you really need to move your equipment so that we can continue to maintain our property? That's it. That is the, if you want to call it a project, the project's really not a project. It's a matter of asking somebody to move their equipment so we can continue to
Well, what is
maintain our
about the
property by
fence
law.
talk then?
I'm not sure. There was just a thought that in the future, we may want to consider putting a fence up if this is a routine problem, and that's it. It's been a statement.
So no
That's
one
it.
has any, so no one with authority has told anyone to go put a fence up then?
No, and there's no fence planned at this moment. It was,
It was brought up, and I told facilities maintenance specifically, we are not putting a fence up, period. What Robert is telling you is we went in there to trim trees so that they would not fall on this man's property or anyone else. That's all there is to it. We are not putting up a fence.
Okay. That's great news to you, I'm sure. So I heard it from the horse's mouth. We're not putting up a fence. Thank you, Mr. Gregory.
Thank you very much, and I'll rest
I
my
think,
case.
exactly,
Mr.
thank you.
Wood, we want to thank you for bringing it to our attention, and Mr. Knight, as always, thank you for coming up and clarifying, and Mr. Gregory, I appreciate you clarifying where we are as a district with this property, and I would say, just from listening to Mr. James, is if there are some concerns with dumping, then maybe you should bring it to the board, maybe we should have some signs posted. So if you want to look into that. Yes, Mr. Wood?
May I interrupt on that,
Sure.
ma'am? The city has been out, or the county has been out and cited several issues in regards to stored equipment on the properties in violation of some codes. And I think appropriate action has been rendered or taken care of at this point. I'm not a positive point about this, don't misunderstand that. But I do know they have been out and definitely have cited accordingly.
On behalf of the city or county?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Who
okay.
told you that the fence was going up? Where did y'all get that?
The fencing issue came out from the people who come in and trim the trees, I'll use that term, or cut the trees. They said that there was a fence going to be established within 6 inches of our fence, existing fences, which would not allow us to have access in and out of our back
I
areas.
would like for Mr. Gregory to find out who they are that told you that.
It's Conrad.
That myself, Ms. Stacy.
I can probably speak to that.
That's a point
I think
of
we're gonna
order.
get it resolved.
Yeah, I think we can speak to that. Conrad is a subcontractor for the school system on tree trimming. When they went out to do tree trimming on this time, we had told them that also clear an area against the property line. Don't just take dead trees down, clear a path against the property line for a future fence. And that's where that came in.
Okay.
You know, in
We'll
case
just
it
keep
were done
talking,
up,
we'll get
because
right to the bottom
there
of
are
it all.
situations where there were trees 3 inches from the property line that were not dead, but simply could be leaning on top. Matter of fact, there are trees that are leaning over other people's property on the property line where you would put a fence, and we said, well, act as if there is gonna be a fence there, and we want a 5-foot wide path against the property line cleared, only because we're gonna be back there in time as these trees begin to lean into people's property right on the property line. They're gonna be a problem again, so we didn't want to just take down dead trees this time, clear any tree that's leaning, whether it's within the school's property or on the property line, and anything against the property line that's affecting the property owner's fence. I believe that's how it came into being.
All right, well, thank you so much, and thank you for bringing it to us attention again, Mr. Wood. You know, we appreciate you as part of our community. Thank you again, Mr. Knight, for the clarification. All right. Yeah, Mr. Wood, we have your information, we want to get back to you.
Pictures and your original signed letter.
Did that help you look
Yeah,
at it?
That
they're
did help,
very
and the
good.
letter really helped me to understand it also. And I think we're on the record, school board minutes, it didn't happen in.
I got an issue I gotta take up with Conrad, but that's beside the point.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Helen Hamel?
Hello, Board. For the sake of brevity, we're going to do a joint presentation, if that is all right.
Your name is, can you spell your last name, please?
Sure, Helen Hamel, Hamel. My address is 3445 Southeast Highway 42, Summerfield, Florida, 34491.
I'm Vicki Trulieb, that's Treulieb, and my address is 4700 Southeast 33rd Avenue, Ocala, Florida, 34480. The last time I talked to you, I had the pleasure of speaking with you the last board meeting, and I addressed with you my concerns over the over-testing of our students and the inability to handle some of the students when they were testing. Recently, this past week, some of my colleagues and I had the opportunity to go to Tallahassee and address the state legislature about these issues that were occurring in our classrooms. Helen is handing out to you our talking points that we addressed with them and our resolutions as to how to better facilitate this testing that's occurring. First, I guess we should stress that we, as teachers, we understand the process of testing and the need of testing, and we're not strictly against testing altogether, but there are times when it has its place, and we are kind of overdoing that at the moment. So I'm going to let Helen talk more about that.
I'm just going to read for you guys the letter we sent back to the senators and representatives that we were granted admittance into meeting with them. We knew they had a busy schedule, and we wanted to make sure that they had in one piece of information what we were talking about when we went and met with them. I will say our legislators were very receptive to hear about what is going on at the ground level at our schools. They were very receptive. They were almost at as much a loss as we are as to how to fix it, but it was pleasing to see that they took our concerns seriously. We hope to see some changes, but that will be seen hopefully in the coming session. So the letter was written to the Honorable Senator, our representative. We are writing to thank you for the privilege of meeting with you and your staff. We appreciate you and your staff taking the time to meet with us to hear our concerns and suggestions regarding education. Due to the fact that I know you had a lot of meetings following us, we have taken the liberty of summarizing those below. Our concerns regarding testing are the infrastructure of the system. The ratio of students to computers is too high to be time efficient for our schools. The computers available are often outdated and unable to meet the demands of the testing platform. The testing platform itself is incapable of handling the demands of the number of students statewide accessing the platform simultaneously. We challenge the validity of the assessment. The assessment was field tested in Utah, proved to be unreliable there, yet we have still adopted it in Florida. This system has not yet been successfully evaluated as a valid assessment of student knowledge. And the redundancy of assessments. Our students are faced with teacher, district, and state mandated assessments. All these assessments aimed at discovering the same information, which is their knowledge and comprehension of statewide standards. So our recommendations to address these standards are that Florida should utilize paper-based testing until which time, as the infrastructure is deemed capable of handling the demands of this test. By infrastructure, we mean that the student-to-computer ratio is no higher than 2-to-1, and we also mean that the testing platform has been appropriately tested and is confirmed capable of handling the traffic demanded of it. The results of this assessment, our second recommendation is that the results of this assessment should not be used to determine student, teacher, and school proficiency until the test and its results are determined to be considered valid and reliable by all involved stakeholders. That would include parents, educators, the students themselves, the Department of Education. And our third recommendation is that the State Department of Education and local districts should develop a unified plan of assessment, providing that all assessments have a necessary purpose, thereby allowing schools to eliminate redundant tests. We acknowledge and accept that assessment is a necessary part of education. However, technological demands should not be forced until we are able to adequately accommodate such changes without endangering the validity and accuracy of the assessment and further diminishing vital instructional time. Implementing these recommendations will allow for the test to be more equitable for all students involved. And then it was signed with our group. We do have members of the group who did not come up and talk with you, and they Or in the back, they're waving at you. So we were happy with our reception. We hope to see changes.
Vicki and Helen, thank you, and Randy, I see you out there. Thank you. These are members of FIRE, and I know if we all carry that same message of concerns about testing, I'm sure our legislators will try to make some changes, you know, and I just think that the unified message that we all are carrying does impact, and the actual test impacted too. So
Probably the number one response we got from the legislators is to please inform our parents, because they need to be hearing it not just from the teachers, they need to be hearing it system-wide from the parents of these children who are being affected. And I will admit that is someplace where we tend to drop the ball, because we tend to suffer in silence and we grumble and complain amongst ourselves, but we put on a brave face for our kids and we say, guys, don't worry, it'll be okay. We'll get through this.
But I will say this, I spoke to a parent, I believe yesterday, and they shared some concerns regarding their student and the testing. In fact, they want an opt-out policy so badly with this test because they don't feel that their children should be used as guinea pigs, and I would agree that they are to the point where they want their child to just not take the test. So you're facing that as well.
thank you. Does any other board member have a comment?
I thank y'all for going to Tallahassee. I think our legislators need to hear from teachers. You know, they hear from us, they hear from superintendents, but teachers, you're the ones in the classroom, in the firing line, and I thank you so much for going. And I know that your group is making a big difference. You're going to get bigger, and you'll have more impact than you'll ever know. Thank you.
And I so appreciate you. Again, teachers going beyond the call of duty. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate MEA was ever so kind as to arrange leave so that we can have substitutes to help manage our classrooms and to help allow this to happen, because otherwise I'd have been going up on my spring break, and I may still if they get sneaky with their session plans.
Well, I told you they got the timing wrong since today was Gator Day up there at the Capitol, and we had to go for FSU Day. So.
Well, hey, FSU alum, I liked FSU Day. So.
But thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Board, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Ely. Any discussion? Hearing none, I call a question. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda, say aye, please.
Aye.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
The, I'm seeing it's through C-49, but I thought there was gonna be some discussion on when I was looking at my agenda, on the staffing plan.
That's a typo on my part. It's 40, it's through 40. I had a 90.
Okay, I saw that, thank you, okay.
I will correct that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ready to vote.
Okay.
I don't think that's something I just don't need to.
No, it's not. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes. For the benefit of those in the room and in our viewing audience, I would like for Mr. Superintendent George Tomlin to review the process we have been through thus far in preparing the staffing plan that is under consideration tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd, and I appreciate that. For the persons who haven't had the opportunity to visit with us in our work sessions, I appreciate the opportunity to summarize for everyone. To remind everyone, we have had 3 different work sessions on this, a back-to-back work session on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and then another work session just this past week. To remember, Mrs. Krasalka and Mr. Gregory both emphasized to our board members and to those in attendance that our focus was on equity, clarity, and transparency as we created this document for you. We held a variety of district level meetings. Hundreds, if not thousands of hours were put into this endeavor. Meetings were held with principals and district staff, meetings with specific groups of instructors, specifically speaking art, music, media, and PE, meetings with district department heads, and executive level meetings where we refined and retooled this plan that has been presented to you. Our specific focus had a number of points in it. One was to restore elementary art, music, media, and physical education programs, to the expansion of vocational opportunities for secondary students, to address class size, to hire needed instructional paraprofessionals, and to prepare for the busy hiring season. Principals have continually told us that great employees are often already hired by the time we give them the opportunity to hire. I'm going to pass to you this time a calendar of our Employment Services Department. If you take one and pass it down, Mr. Lake, thank you very much. This is the timeline we have for hiring this spring and into the summer. And as you get that document, I do want you to make one notation on there. As soon as everyone gets one, you should have 5.
I'll get another one.
Thank you. On April 13th, that's 4, 13, and 17, you'll see, you also know, before I say that, we have an opportunity every year for district employees to apply for transfers. We've also created a separate transfer period for art, music, media, and PE teachers. They were given an opportunity to choose and to select where they were going to be next year, and we now have an opportunity for those who did not get that opportunity to have a special transfer season before that is opened up to everyone else, and I think that's very important to note. The staffing plan, as I mentioned, was presented at 3 different work sessions. You've also received from us, and we have received from you, multiple emails and phone calls for clarification and input. The highlights of the discussion that our staff has heard from you is the first one that kind of focused on the art and music plan, and the staffing plan that you have in front of you does reflect a full unit at those small schools, even though we had recommended initially that we split those schools. There was discussion on testing facilitators or coordinators, whatever you might want to call that. And I will remind you that those positions are, again, going back to our clarity issue and equity issue. Those persons were doing those jobs, however, they came from the basic student allocation. We've simply designated at our secondary schools that they be for testing positions specifically. You've had discussion about magnet program facilitators and the use of elementary coordinators, which we've recommended for large elementary schools. And I know those issues are very important to you. And I'd like to remind everyone before we begin discussion, if you so choose tonight, that this is a plan. Our budget actually drives the hiring of these folks. We will not receive that budget until May or June of this year. Our legislature, as you know, is working through that now, and we will know that, and we will begin to fill units, all the units, as many as we can when we receive our budget. I encourage you, and we need you to approve of this staffing plan this evening so that we can begin the hiring process of our instructional units with a focus on those elementary art, music, media, and PE and K-12 class size requirements that we've talked about. Should you have any additional questions tonight or concerns that you'd like to discuss with us, I have not intentionally stacked the room tonight. However, I do have some people that will assist me in answering questions for you. And for the audiences to note, board, I have passed out to you this evening a hard copy of a corrected staffing plan. The electronic copy that you had received earlier was not accurate of your request from last week, and the one you have before you will be corrected electronically at a later date. Thank you very much, Ms. Boynton. I want to share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I really appreciate your input. Board, may I have a motion to approve the 2015-16 district staffing plan dated March 3rd, 2015, and the 2015 to the 2016 school staffing plan per the hard copy distributed this evening, March 24th, 2015, correcting the elementary music allocations. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Ely. Is there any discussion? All right, Ms. Stacy, you want to start off?
Yes. We had this staffing plan given it to us on a Tuesday. We had a meeting on Tuesday, that day, when it was given to us. We met again on Thursday, and then we met the following week to talk about this and our concerns. And we had very long, and I feel productive staffing plan meetings. And at the end of the day, you know, we have added some positions in different areas, and I don't know where we're getting the money from, but, because last year at this time, when we wanted music and art teachers, we didn't have the money, but we've got the same number of students and same amount of money for these items, because the referendum doesn't cover any of these items except the music and art teachers, but some of the other positions. So I kind of whittled it down to, we've added testing coordinators. In my world of watching the government operate for the last 25 years, at the school board specifically, when we make a name for something, testing coordinators, it becomes institutionalized. And then next year, they're going to come back and they're going to need a flex unit, which actually the testing coordinator kind of was a flex unit before. You know, at one time it kind of filled in the gap, and I know we called them testing coordinators, but now we got to have them back because we gave them up. And so they'll forget that they have that extra person, then they'll come back wanting another person. And as I'm screaming, we need teachers' assistants, and we need, you know, we need things directly in the classroom. So to go from a position where there's 1,600 positions, we go from 0 to 16 positions, which is a 1,600% increase in that position this year. That is $1 million item. I do understand that our large high schools do need help, and I'm not sure really this is the only area, but what concerns me is, in years past, I've been convinced, go ahead, vote for the staffing plan, but then when we do the budget, you know, if we can't do this and can't do that, you know, we won't do it. Well, what I have found is that when it gets to the budget, the things that hits the classroom gets cut out, but these type of administrative type positions, and even though it's an instructional person, the testing coordinator will be one of our great teachers that we pull 16 great teachers out of the classroom, and then they become, you know, not having the student contact. And I know we need good teachers to help the other teachers, and I consider this more of an assistant teacher position than a testing coordinator position, because once you give someone a coordinator name, now they are a status where they are a coordinator. They're not really, you know, helping the teachers and that type of thing. And I think sometimes we need to be careful naming things, because if they are definitely assisting the teachers, they are an assistant to the teachers, an assistant teacher. And so I believe that our middle schools right now, if I had to vote on this, I could probably support testing coordinators, teaching assistant teachers at the high schools, but not at the middle schools. We have, the high schools have 4 grade levels, middle school has 3. And the middle school, some of the middle schools, I guess they have some coaches. Don't they have some of your academic coaches? Some of them are your academic coaches and those type of things, your reading coaches and your instructional, your math coaches.
That do what?
At some of the middle schools. Don't you have those at the middle school? Some. So they have things at the middle school that the high schools do not have,
We
such,
also have those in the high school.
well, some of the high schools have.
And the elementary.
But at the high schools, they've got a lot more preparing SATs, you know, ACTs, all kinds of things that are not happening at the middle school level. And so I don't believe that we're so rich that we can just throw $1 million at one item, when last year, when I was begging for librarians and I only needed $600,000, I couldn't even get $600,000 for something that affected the teachers tremendously. And so I can't support the staffing plan, because you're saying, you know, we were told at the workshop, well, we understand your concerns, and so we'll look at that. Well, now I'm seeing you got deadlines to post positions and everything. So these positions in the past, they start getting filled and they start getting advertised, because I don't know how you can even fill all these positions, because we don't have a budget yet to know what we can afford. But yet we're going to start hiring all these people, but we're putting the cart all before the horse. And so therefore, I will not be supporting the staffing plan. I cannot see hitting the taxpayers for $1 million item where we increase from 0 to 1,600% increase in a position without making gradual moves up in our budget. I don't think we can afford it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Just a couple things. Mrs. Stacy, we received the budget from the state in either May or June. We go through budget workshops throughout the summer.
I know how it
And you
works.
approve the budget in September. We cannot wait until September to start school or to prepare for school. We have to hire teachers as soon as they're available. to start school in August as our prescribed date. We can't wait. And the other thing I'd like to just point out to you, if you can picture a number, let's picture the basic unit allocation to a school last year was 100 basic units. And from that number, a principal would select an individual to do the coordination of the variety of testing things that are done at a school. We are now assigning essentially that school 99 basic units, and at the recommendation of our principals, designating a specific unit goes to a testing facilitator coordinator. There are not 16 new different units. These are units that were folded into the basic allocation before, and they're being specifically named. Equity, clarity, and transparency. Thank you.
Mrs. Valenti, I'm glad you shared that with me, because that's what the teachers had told me. So instead of being.
Who told you what?
That we had people acting in those positions already
Yes, ma'am.
anyway. It's interesting how last year when we did the budget, we were told these were all instructional units and all these people were in classrooms and everything, and that now we know that secretly the administration had this one position that the school board wasn't told about.
I resent you saying that we did something secretly, Mrs. Stacy, because
You know what,
that
I
is-
resent, Mr. Tomlin, I resent the fact that this did not come to us last year. I am not voting for this staffing plan. I'm gonna find out what else you're hiding.
That's hurtful, Ms. Stacy. You're
That's it.
entitled to your opinion, but that's hurtful.
You know what, it insults
Point
my
of order,
intelligence
Ms.
for you to
Stacy.
think that I
Point of
don't
order.
know that we have to hire school
Point
teachers ahead of time.
Order, Ms. Stacy.
May I speak?
Mrs. Ely.
Okay. I've talked to some principals, I've talked to teachers, I've been a principal at an elementary school where we've had to pull guidance counselors, deans, assistant principals to stop whatever they were doing when testing started. This was 5 years ago. Testing has become much more involved. We can't tell the state that we're not going to have a testing coordinator because we're not going to test. The state is not going to give us those testing coordinators. I spoke with Ms. Weldon, and she gave me great detail as to what the responsibility of a testing coordinator is from the first day of school on. And Ms. Weldon, may I call on you to give us a little bit more information? It's specific, well, especially middle school, because it's become much more involved, and I don't know, as a principal, who I could pull at a middle school to coordinate testing and still be guidance counselors and deans to the school.
Thank you, Ms. Ely. Board members, Mr. Superintendent. I think the thing that has changed most in the past 4 or 5 years with testing is the advent of computer-based testing. And the perception might be, well, what's hard about that? You put a kid in front of a computer that's internet connected, they go to a website, they take a test. It sounds very easy. It's not easy at all. First of all, it happens routinely throughout the year for all secondary schools, middle schools, and high schools as well. The first state end-of-course administration is in the second week of September. So really from day one, the middle schools and high schools are preparing to administer these tests. There's a pre-ID file that's submitted into the test system for all the students, but then they manually have to add students. They have to add students who receive accommodations. They have to create test groups. They have to assign teachers. They have to, and many times, reschedule the school's schedule, master schedule, to get groups of students in and out of computer-based testing. It happens again in October, happens again in December. We do field testing in January and February, and the first week of March, FSA writing component begins. So it truly has become a year-round enterprise for computer-based testing in our secondary schools. In addition, we're using now in the state of Florida 2 separate testing platforms. Pearson has their platform. AIR has their platform as well. They're very different. And this week, as we got back into Pearson's platform, our high school folks realized that they're encountering problems because they've gotten used to the other one. So this is a job where somebody needs to take responsibility on the school-wide level. They must be instructional, as required by the state, and they must be develop a deep knowledge and understanding of how these things work and carry it out through the school year. So that's what has changed in the past several years.
May I ask you something?
Yes, ma'am.
What is their responsibility to the teachers once the data is that they get the data from the assessments?
Right. When we had a testing coordinator position in our high school several years ago, what we found was those people became the data experts. And we've got a couple of folks here. As a matter of fact, Mr. Whitehouse was a testing coordinator in a high school several years ago. They became the data experts for their schools. They helped teachers at the student level, the classroom level, the school level, disaggregating, aggregating data, tracking data, helping to provide for instructional planning throughout the school year.
They also train the teachers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that help, Mr. James?
I know how much time that the superintendent and the staff has put together to bring us a staffing plan. And I know what time frames that we work with in terms of trying to get out there and compete with other people. And I know one thing, at the end of the day, if we do not have the money, and this is what we'll be getting in May and a little bit further down there, we're not gonna staff this thing. I think our task is very clear. We need to go ahead and pass this simply because we have workshopped this thing to death. And we have workshopped this thing to the point where we just got these things where people just have some things they just agree with. But we know what our priorities right now is to go ahead and pass this staffing plan so we can make our school district competitive with the rest of the districts in here in getting people to really perform. If there is not any more discussion in reference to looking for something, I'll call the question on this unless you want to jump into this thing.
Well, what I've observed in the past week or so is I've received several probably emails and some phone calls, and I realize the principals have a great interest in these testing facilitators. And a point I think last week maybe I didn't realize is that they were flex units. And we have to appreciate that they are calling it as what it is, and that's not hidden. That's their position. Yeah, it was, but I wasn't here then, so I'm going from what I have right now. And also, I understand the hiring process, and if we don't put this in, then they can't move on with the rest of the plan, and then we won't be able to get good teachers into our school system, and that's what I see. But I would, I'd probably like to say that I am going to vote yes with reservations, and, being new, that I would like to suggest, and maybe you guys already do it, when our revenues come in, that we can look at them and see, where our positions are. Just look at our revenues and our expenses. Is that, okay? So that's my position.
Just before, remember at our last work session, one of the things I asked the board was, what we stated was that we were going to accept the staffing plan with some concerns in certain areas, and it was duly noted in our minutes by our secretary. So I think, and I'm hearing you say you have a little reservation, and I'm sure it's noted also in the minutes, and so I appreciate that you understand there is a huge responsibility that we do have, but there's also, as staff is explaining to us, we have to really listen hard how they move units around or how it's allocated at the principal level at a school rather than at the administration level on how they were using their flex units. And so now it's very clear what their needs are. And so I really appreciate you saying what you just said, Mrs. King. And Mrs. Stacy, I do recognize you now.
Okay, had someone explained it to the board, that, because I understood that this extra unit that we had was actually the magnet person, was not a testing coordinator, but that this extra flex person that they were calling it flex was actually the magnet coordinator, not the testing coordinator. So I'm very confused. I don't know which it is now.
This is exactly why Mrs. Krasovka and Mr. Gregory came to you again. Equity, clarity, and transparency. We have taken our unit allocation sheets that used to go to, let's say, 7 different high schools that said a number of different things. Some schools got a magnet coordinator, some schools got flexible units, some schools got testing coordinators, whatever it might be. Now they look the same, so everybody knows what's there. Mrs. Krasalka, as a matter of fact, this afternoon met with our 7 high school principals to go over their staffing plan and listen to some of their concerns that they have, and to further explain, again, the clarity on how we're making this available to them. The actual school-based staffing plan from last year had a variety of, it was different for each school and had a variety of different entries. And this year it's much more concise, and they're the same. We looked at what it would take to be a standard high school, a standard middle school, a standard elementary school, and that's what the staffing plan looks like now.
Okay, we've been in meetings for a lot of days now. For 10 days, we've had meetings. Not one time have we been told that, because this board did not know that we had that extra unit over and beyond the instructional unit. When we had classrooms where at one point teachers were getting half pay and we couldn't staff our rooms, we weren't told that, Mr. Tomlin. We weren't told that there was a floating person out there. The school board was led to believe those positions were teaching units. We did not know. We were told that we had to give up our testing coordinator because times were hard. And now I find out we never really gave up the testing coordinator. We just renamed it.
We gave up the test coordinator position on those staffing plans, but we did not take away the responsibility for those schools to administer tests. So they took people, various people. They used guidance counselors to do some things. They used their athletic director. They used a dean to do something, and that's how they've managed
Well, you told me just a few minutes
things.
ago that if they had 100 positions, that only 99 of them would be instructional and 1 would be applied to this.
That is how it's,
Well, that's still not what you're saying. I'll be the only one not voting for it, and that's okay. Because I'm still, on the last hour, I'm hearing things that we've not been told, and all the board members are sitting here. None of us were told that. So I'm glad that you're clarifying it, and I hope that from here forward, it will be nice and clear that what they're doing there. But, you've told me, I've understood 2 different things from you yet tonight, and so I will be a standalone by myself vote against it. And maybe next year I can join in and vote with everybody on it, if it's very, very clear, if you tell me that that's what we're now doing, that we didn't do last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stacy. Mr. James, you call a question? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve the 2015-2016 district staffing plan dated March the 3rd, and the 2016 school staffing plan dated March 24th, that was distributed this evening, say aye, please.
All right.
Opposed, like sign.
Nay.
Did you vote?
Yeah. Did it go?
And this staffing plan is, the motion passes 4-1. Thank you, board. May I have a motion to approve the following donations? $2,000 to Bellevue High School from Zaxby's, $2,084.97 to Bellevue Middle School from Bellevue Middle School PTO, $4,000 to Emerald Shores Elementary School from their business partner, Closet Maid, via the Public Education Foundation. $15,000 to Hillcrest Public Schools from an anonymous donor. $2,000 to Lake Ware High School for the mini grant TV production via the Public Education Foundation. $13,000 to Lake Ware Middle School from their business partner, Closet Maid, via the Public Education Foundation. $1,320 to Marion Technical Institute from Kiwanis Club of Ocala, Inc. $1,000 to Marion Technical Institute from Marion County Bar Association. $2,500 to Marion Technical Institute from their business partner, CenturyLink, via the Public Education Foundation. $1,000 to North Marion High School from Marion County Children Alliance, Inc. $1,000 to Osceola Middle School from Osceola Middle School PTO. $1,000 to Vanguard High School from Cesar R. Gamero, MD, LLC. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. James, seconded by Mrs. Ely. Any discussion? I call a question. All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. And Mr. James, would you do our thank yous today for
I
us?
sure will, Madam Chairman. But first of all, I want to thank Ms. Ely for getting me the exact amount, so all of us can.
I love looking at those totals.
She provided us the exact amount, that, the total, in other words, $45,904.97 was given to the Marion County school system tonight. And I just want to thank all the people that really, that participate in this part of the school system. And it's so important for us to recognize the people that really take time and interest in our schools to make contribution to us. And on behalf of all the students in the school system that have been affected by people that have given us money over the past, thank you on behalf of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to say this. If you notice, one of our schools, they get $15,000 anonymously. So, you know, if you have an interest out there and you want to donate and you don't want to be known, you can
It wasn't me. It was
you know, but you can still donate.
We'll allow you to remain anonymous.
And you can remain anonymous. So I really appreciate that person. And I know that the students and staff over at Hillcrest really do also.
Guarantee your confidentiality.
Thank you. Okay, board, let me give you a few reminders here. The next administrative briefing and work session is scheduled for Thursday, April 9th, 2015 at 9 a.m. The purpose of the work session is to our final review for the 2016 health insurance options as if it's needed, and final review of the Code of Student Conduct, as well as a review of recommended changes to job classifications, description, procedures, and a temporary personnel board policy. I also want to remind you, and I'm sure most of you already know, and just counting the days, the school system will be closed for a spring break, March 30th to April 3rd.
I think it's the 27th too. It's a work day. The 27th is the work day.
This Friday, school's out, but we're working.
But
The school system will be closed. That means the building, the whole system. So what we're discussing is that on the 27th, the students are out,
That's correct.
but the school itself, all the schools itself will close on the 30th for spring break. So I'm sure staff is looking forward to it, so. At this point, I'm going to ask each board member, do you have any reports, concerns, or comment? I'll start with you, Mr. James.
I just would like to, once again, say kudos to Howard Middle School, because they had a spring roundup, and they were there, and being honest with you, I walked the campus and got out of there, because I realized that I needed to go home. I'm just being perfectly honest with you, and I know Mr. Hensel and I talked earlier. One of the things I'd like to say in reference to the board, we've had really some good work sessions in reference to our budget. And I don't know whether the John Group public really know about it because it was not televised, but it was some frank discussions, and we really got a better understanding of the budget. And I know as we begin to go through this process, we will continue to grow in the knowledge of what the budget is and the time frames that we work on. I know that some school districts have already passed their staffing plan, and they are out there looking for quality teachers. And I would like to remind everybody, and especially our staff out there, that we need to look for some minority teachers. Let's get out there early and let's find some minority teachers, because the numbers are telling me that we're drifting in one direction, and I know that this is important. And why am I saying this? If we look at student discipline, we look at student growth in classes, we look at what we do, there is some truth in the fact that communication is important, and kids understand where teachers are coming from and what they're talking about, and they need to see somebody that's similar. So it's important that we get out there early. We make sure that we get the best people out there, the best people that's available, and then we can address all the other issues, the underlying issues that go on. That's very important, and I think we're on the right track once we get it out there and we go to competing for these teachers. Thank you.
I would just like to say that this past Saturday, I had the opportunity to go out to North Marion High. Mr. Whitehouse is back there, that's why I'm looking that way. And I ran the 5K for the Wounded Warriors. And I have to say that the students, basically, they put this project together and ran it themselves. And it was the JROTC and I believe the leadership. And they were just out there, they had put it together, and they raised over $4,000 for an awesome reason. You know, it was just made me very happy to see that. And I would also like to say, I believe you hit the nail on the head when you said that we need good quality teachers. And I hope that by this plan being approved, that you guys can get on this quickly and get the most qualified and best teachers, because our students deserve it and they need it. And I'm competitive and I want to be top notch. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Mrs. King. Mrs. Stacy.
And I agree. We had a great workshop. Staff was wonderful. You know, there's the old saying that sometimes people think friction is bad, you know, especially in the education world, because we're taught here, there's so much in the education world about political correctness and everybody worrying about upsetting. So many things don't get done because of political correctness and afraid to say what needs to be said. We were all very respectful to one another. We had a great, and Mrs. Crisacco, you did a great job with us on Thursday. I know you had your hands full with this board on Thursday. I saw you with your little shawl wrapped around your neck. I think you wanted to hang yourself with it at sometimes. But we put some sand on the tracks, Mr. Tomlin. Sometimes to get the train going, it just takes a little sand to get you got to get a little friction going sometimes to get some things said that need to be said. And I believe we did that, and I think all the board members worked great together. We had our Mrs. Boynton was the one that really had her hands full, and she did a great job. She ran the meeting, a very trying meeting with a lot of ideas. Mrs. Boynton ran it with class, and she just did a great job. And so I want to thank her for probably handling one of the most interesting board meetings we've had in a long time. And I agree, Mr. James. When children, I believe that we need to make sure we keep our minority balance where it needs to be. Regardless of who we are, we all have our culture. You know, we have our cultures, and there's things that we understand. Me from the South, I have my culture, and some teachers that might be from the North, and there's students that transfer in from the North, they have their culture, they have their things. And different populations have their cultures, and I think that it helps for a lot of ways that someone that's from a similar culture can step in and handle a situation maybe better than someone who doesn't understand that culture in every single different way, to include the Asians and everybody. So Mr. James, you know, I applaud you for bringing that up. It is something that we need to, you know, we everything we do, we need to think of how it's going to affect the student. And that is something that, you know, it takes courage, Mr. James, to bring that up. That's a topic that people don't like to talk about. But I believe that we definitely, and I ask the people that's in charge of hiring to please, you know, help with our minority mixes, our Hispanics and our Black Americans and our Asian Americans, and so that the students can relate to their culture a little bit and bring things to the classroom from those cultures that's really, really interesting that are the good things about the culture. And so I want to thank the school board for their time and all their effort they put into the staffing plan, and it was a great meeting. Thank you.
Mrs. Ely.
I want to thank all the principals out there with their smiling faces. I hope that we have helped the situation with the testing. It's going to be very successful, but we've got to have somebody running it. It's not going to run by itself, and you can't pull people from other parts of your school to run the testing. But thank you for coming to support us and to listen to us. I also wanted to mention the FIRE group, the Fantastic Young Remarkable Educators. Miss Boynton, Miss King, Miss Stacy, and I went to their meeting last week at the bowling alley. And we've got a nice group of young educators, and I know you'll be bringing in more people as we hire more teachers, but you've got a great support group going. Lindsay Hampton is the coordinator from the district, and it sounds like she's a lot of good ideas to help network whatever's going on and help you, because I know that you just having an internship and graduating from college doesn't make you an expert as a teacher that first year. So I thank the FIRE group for Randy Hawk. Is he still here? No. But I thank that FIRE group for getting going and keeping on going. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ely. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you very much, Board. A few announcements for you. If you want to see some fine teachers in action this Thursday evening at South Ocala Elementary, beginning at 5:00 p.m., we'll have our another Teachers Night Out. This is sponsored by the Golden Apple Academy and the Public Education Foundation. Anywhere from 200 to 300 and possibly more teachers will be gathering together for social time, then an opportunity to go through 2 learning teaching sessions, and then have dinner together. It's a great tribute to their profession and our profession to see them at work. A little bit about our assessment update. Mrs. Weldon has already spoken briefly to you tonight. We have completed, with the exception of makeups, the writing portion of the Florida Standards Assessment. Again, you know, some of those assessments were given on paper to our elementary grades, and then on our 8th through 10th graders were on computer. There are some concerns with that, especially in reference to the computer administered test. There was some time lost and some breaks in time and some retyping and some re-entering. But I think I need to say this. It's very important that we continue to use this new testing format. Our hope is that at some point in time, DOE will recognize that it is not perfect, because we already recognize that, and that we would like this to be called a pilot year. Let's get all the bugs worked out, but we certainly should not be using this assessment time for the penalty phase, so to speak, from promotion and retention, for teacher evaluations and school grades. We certainly believe in accountability, but we also recognize the need and actually the requirement for uniformity and consistency in all forms of our testing. I know you're continuing to monitor, along with me, the legislation and what's going on with our Florida legislature. I'm sure, and I'd encourage you, if you're not doing this, to read the FSBA updates. Ruth Melton provides a good format for you to get reviews. And I think it's very important to see how things progress, so you'll know that not all of a sudden in the end of April or May there's a law, but you'll understand how it gets to where it's going. Preliminary budgets have been submitted by the House, Senate, and the governor, and they're quite a ways apart, and we know that there is going to be some haggling, horse trading, whatever they do in Tallahassee to give us our budget, and we'll certainly give that information to you as soon as we receive it. Also, you mentioned recruiting. We brought back this year a teacher recruitment fair, a recruitment opportunity for prospective teachers to come in here on the evening of Friday, May 15th, and then the morning of May 16th on Saturday. And our principals are signing up, and our principals actually have taken the lead for this in organizing this event for us. We continue to hear much discussion about the school year and when the schools will be permitted to start school. I mentioned this at our last board meeting, and I'll continue to bring it up to you. We don't have any definitive answers yet, but when we do have something, you know my feeling, and that is to be able to end the first semester prior to winter break, and we're going to do everything in our power to bring you a calendar that will permit us to do that if we are so permitted by the legislature. And I continue to say that for anybody who might be listening, because that might end up with some change in summer plans in the month of August. especially tonight, you did something tonight that I have never worked with the board to do, and that's approve a special resolution for the lease purchase of some buses. And I'd certainly like to thank Executive Director Teresa Boston Ellis and her staff, and Deputy Superintendent Chester Gregory and his staff for all of the work that they've done in securing this bid, to securing this loan, facilitating what I think is a very favorable lease purchase agreement for our new buses. And while I'm at it, Teresa Boston Ellis probably hadn't seen this yet, but I'm going to do this again, and I have a letter from the Government Finance Officers Association. Dear Mr. Tommen, we are pleased to notify you that your comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year ended June 30, 2014 qualifies for a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. The certificate of achievement is the highest, I repeated that, not in the letter, the highest form of recognition in governmental and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. An award for the certificate of achievement has been shipped to, you know it, Teresa Boston Ellis, Executive Director of Business Services. We hope that you will arrange for a formal presentation, which we will, of the certificate and award of financial reporting achievement. Folks, this is 15 years in a row. Teresa Boston Ellis and your staff, thank you. And that's a good note to end on. That's all I have.
Well, thank you so much. Mr. Lake, our attorney.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Boynton. Yeah, just a short note that we will meet after this meeting, a group of professionals and the council we have outside to execute all the documents that we need to execute for the lease purchase agreement for the school buses. So we'll do that right after this meeting.
Great, thank you. Ms. Blocker, do you have anything to say? Well, board, I want to try to say a lot in a little bit of time as possible. Recap a little bit. Mr. James, thank you for bringing up the hiring of minority teachers. I'm going to ask our principals out there to be sensitive when you're hiring your teachers and realize that we do need minority teachers. So put your sensitive hat on and go out there and do a good job and make sure you get the best for us, okay? We appreciate you so much. Thanks to, congratulations, Teresa, and your department, and Ann, and all y'all out there for making us look good in our finance department. That's really good. Let's see. Buses, I can't wait till we get those buses. I want you to know that, okay? Because I was really, I've had parents call and say, are we ever going to get new buses? And now we can go out and say, yes, they're coming.
The new bus smell to them. So.
Yeah, the new buses.
It looks different too.
Yeah, they look different. They're coming, so.
They might let you haul a bunch of kids.
They probably don't want me driving though, you know. No, I don't have my CDL. I've never.
That's a good enough excuse.
Yeah, never driven anything bigger than a Jeep. So, and the staffing plan, I just want to thank each of you board members for having an open mind and really, coming to the work sessions ready to work and bringing your concerns out because, each of us have our different thoughts. And so when one person brings out a concern, it's something that we may have never thought of. So I appreciate the fact that we're so open and honest with one another and that we listen to one another. I don't ever want us to argue with each other, but sometimes it happens, But I think that we as a board work together so well that I'm really pleased. And I know, Mr. Tommen, we're really pleased with how you communicate, with how your staff always comes up and communicates to us and brings us any question we have, that they are there to answer. So I really thank you all for that. And I think Mrs. Weldon's email covers so much that sometimes I'm afraid to ask you questions because, it's so in depth there, So I really appreciate everything. And with that, board, before addressing any expulsion matters, I wish to acknowledge that board members have received the alternative placement list for students through March 6, 2015. Are there any parents in the audience who wish to speak on behalf of a student regarding a disciplinary matter. Okay, Board, may I have a motion to approve the expulsions of student JD 15-62E, JD 15-64, JD 15-65E, JD 15-66, JD 15-67, JD 15-68E, JD 15-69E, JD 15-06, JD 15-08, JD 15-11, JD 15-12E, and JD 15-27 with educational services through the first semester of 2015 to 2016 school year. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Ely and seconded by Mr. James. Is there any discussion? I call the question. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion passes 5-0. There being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, the motion's been moved by Mrs. Ely, seconded by Mrs. King. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the meeting is adjourned at 7:11.